Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode. And rarity as it is, this is one of my topics today, and I am calling it the power of no and how to use it. So, first of all, hello, Stephen. How are you?
I'm very good, Oliver. And how are you?
Yeah, I am. I am as well as I can be. At the time of recording this, Norwich City have just done a terrible job with football-wise, and our arch rivals Ipswich have got promoted. So, other than that, though, if we take football off the table, I'm pretty good. So, I've been saying a no a lot to going to Carrow Road lately. I can tell you that, Stephen. To be fair. So, what do I mean by the power of no and how to use it? I think a lot of people, certainly that I work with and that I speak to, don't like saying no. So, first and foremost, before I start rabbiting on about what I mean, have you experienced that with your circle of influence and client group and so forth? Do they struggle with saying no?
Yes, absolutely. I think we live in a world now where everybody wants to be liked and everybody wants to please. And I think because of that, sometimes we feel that no's a negative. And what I often say to people, no can be a positive because what no sometimes allows you to do is to explain why no and give an alternative. And if used in the right way, no can be a positive. But I do agree with you, Oliver. I think a lot of people struggle with it because they see it as a negative or they see it as someone thinking that they're not good enough, they're not quick enough, they're not good at managing their time or whatever it is. And I think sometimes that's where it comes from. Does that set you off on the path? Because I could feel in my waters a rant coming on.
It's not quite up there with expectations, you know. I wouldn't say it's that much, but it's the inability to say what you're thinking, I think, that frustrates me the most. And I think I'm gifted with the fact that I don't seem to be too worried about what people think of me, which I didn't realize was a rarity. And I'm certainly not worried what people think. So I do accept it's not easy because the vast majority of people do think like that. But it isn't about saying no. It's why I added the and how to use it. Because if someone asks you to do something and you just turn around and say no, that is unlikely to end well. I do accept that. But I love the way you've just already touched on it because it's about how you communicate it. It's about how you set them up for the no. It's about if you've got a situation, a typical example would be your workload. Your workload is too high. It's happening more and more at the moment. So when somebody asks you to do something, rather than saying, no, I can't do that, it's more a case of, well, no, that's going to be very challenging for me to do that because you can see or you know of my workload, depending on the relationship with this person, what priorities that are currently top priorities are going to be shifting for me to be able to fit those in because I'm more than happy to do what you asked for. But if you ask me now, no, I can't do them because of this great big list of priorities that either you've set me or that the business has set me or maybe as individual clients have set me or in terms of people who want to have client sessions with myself, you know, and they want it tomorrow. Well, you're not my only client, you know. I can't just drop everything. If I can, I'll fit it in, but I'm not going to. Are you asking me to go to my four other clients for the day, and I only do four a day, and ask one of them to move for you? Because I don't think that's very fair. So they're the sorts of things that you can do. It's explaining to people the situation, giving them enough information, and almost putting the ball in their court to say, what do you think you is appropriate? So I've just lost Stephen there. There's been an emergency his end, I can see, but he's back now. He's back now. Happy days. It's yeah. So it's just about putting it in their court again, because probably the reason you're in a position where you feel you need to say no but you can't is because of unreasonable behaviors and yes, expectations from the other person who's speaking to you, and they are just hoping that you will not challenge back. And that little monkey, as it were, if we think about the Inside Out, sorry, the One Minute Manager Meets the Monkey book, another classic. You know, I love my books. If we think about it in terms of monkeys, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, read the book and you will. Um, they've offloaded a monkey to you, and maybe they've realized that you're very good at taking those monkeys off them, and they'll give them more and more and more. Because we're not talking about just individual members of staff getting it from their managers. We could be thinking about staff going back up to the managers, and you could be that manager who's then not saying no. And your staff have begun to work out that you take work off us. And the thing is, that makes your life very stressful. It also undermines them as staff because, they're not doing what they need to be doing, and it's going to affect their confidence. It's a whole world of misery that leads from not being able to say no effectively. I stand by what I said. You can't just say no. Well, you can, but it won't end well. But if you explain it and communicate and talk about it, any environment you're in, working with reasonable people, that no should be good enough. And if it's regularly met with problems, then you have a problem with whatever situation you are in, and you need to take a deep, hard look at that and think, is this the right environment for me, whatever it is? So, yes, I think that probably actually does qualify as a bit of a rant, but what do you think?
No, I think it's a good rant, and I think it's one that people will really link to. And I always think if you can say no, it actually allows you more time. It gives you time back, if that's the right way. Because what it enables you to do is to think about whatever it is someone's just asked you to do. But again, it's about saying no in the right way. So I'm not going to be able to do that. No, I'm not going to be able to do that. However, give me a little bit of time to look through it, and then I'll come back to you with a timeline. So what no can actually do is give you more time to focus on how long is this actually going to take me. And I think it's about using it in a positive way. As I said, I think no can be a positive, not a negative, but it depends on the context and what you put around the no. And as you said, tone is also quite important as well. If you go no, someone's gonna, it's not gonna go down so well. But again, it's about using the right tone, and it's about what goes around the no. And I know we've talked historically about expectations, but it is about preparing someone for what's going to happen because of that no. And then actually it can be used as a positive, not a negative. But I think it is something that's really important to say, just like yes is important to say. But I think no can be used in a positive, but it depends on what's around it. And we've talked about confidence, we've talked about believing in yourself historically as well. And I do think being able to say no is about having confidence as well, because that no that you can say, which is no that means yes because you haven't clearly defined that it's a no, is also quite deadly, and that's sometimes around confidence. So you basically say no, which is, oh no, but it could be a yes. Okay, so
Mm.
you're saying no, but the way that you're saying no, you mean yes. So you've actually got to have that confidence with the no. And then as long as you build that narrative around it, as I said, it can be used as a positive. Does that resonate, Oliver?
Absolutely, yeah. So first and foremost, is a positive 100%. And the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. So you may find it a bit clunky to start with if you're not a regular user of the word no. But if you are a regular user of the word yes, this will definitely resonate with you because whilst yes is important, again, the same rules apply. Yes, I can do that. However, but if there's a workload pressure or something along those lines, I think one of the things that I find really really powerful about this though as well is understanding if you lead, if you own a business. I'm not just talking to you, but right at this moment, I'm kind of looking deep into your eyes because if you have a company where people are feeling unable, let's almost say the word can't, which we know we don't like, can't say no, you have bigger problems than you realize because that is not okay. And you, as the owner, as the founder, have to have a word with yourself because there must be an issue with and again, I don't love the word, but the culture, because people obviously don't have the confidence, they don't feel valued, or they're worried about the consequences of saying no. But the problem is, if they don't feel confident about that, you have well, more than two, but two really clear examples. First and foremost, they're probably overworked, which you might think, well, that's great because I'm getting more out of them, but you're wrong because they are disengaged and they are delivering far less quality. So we're talking often about quality versus quantity. They might be producing quantity, but you will probably get caught out in the end because the quality won't be there. So whilst it might feel like a win at the moment, it isn't. So I would beg you, again, looking directly into the camera at you, really think, do you believe that your staff can genuinely say no to you in your organization, and or in the other departments that they report to if it isn't directly your responsibility? If you don't have confidence in that, you have a problem. And moving into the world that we are, where customer experience and user experience and employee experience is king, that is going to really set you up to, for a big fall in the not too distant future. And that isn't a threat; it is a fact. And I would implore anybody to go to the floor, as it were, and find out whether people genuinely are feeling comfortable about saying yes or no. I'll give you a perfect example. One of my clients uses staff surveys. I don't love them, to be fair, because in a company where everything's good, why do we need that? Because we've got a good understanding of what everybody's thinking. We can talk about it. And where you feel you need it, how many people are likely to answer honestly? Because although it's anonymous, there are certain answers that we would feel as an individual can point back to us. So why would we answer it honestly? And is that really the best way? Do you want to just pay brief attention to to that area? No, this should be part of what you live and breathe. Now, I can see that feeling like it's quite an arduous process, but honestly, I passionately believe, and I'll happily have a debate with someone about it, but I passionately believe that the vast majority of businesses will fall on how comfortable their staff feel about communicating. And in amongst that is the ability to say no. So, what do you think?
No, I think you've hit a real nerve there around culture and around because the culture's not right, people feeling like they've got to say yes. The issue with that, Oliver, is that can lead to a loss of profitability, a loss of productivity, and a real loss of what I call that company energy and drive because people are saying yes, they're overworked, they've got too much to do, it's not being delivered in the right way because they can't be honest and say, well, actually, no, that's not right. That's not how it works. And if you think about this, Oliver, in a lot of organizations, and this is in small, medium enterprises and also in large organizations, the detail is invariably done by people that are not at the top. And I mean the detail, I mean the stuff that really gets into the mind, the front line stuff, the stuff that actually makes a business successful. If they don't feel confident in communicating and being able to say no, that's going to take longer. No, actually, that doesn't go in that way. Actually, you've missed out a big process here with it, because you don't understand the real nuts and bolts of it. That can be really demoralizing to an organization and it can derail a business. So let's get real here as well. Culture is massively important to the stability of any business. And if it's a culture where people can't communicate and they can't use the word no in fear of what might happen, that's a business that's going to struggle further down the line. So I think you hit on a really sensitive point there, Oliver, which I think with a lot of the organizations that I work with, culture is the thing that we're working on. Your values lead directly into the culture. If the values are not right, then the culture won't be right. If the values are just words on a piece of paper, then the culture's not right. And they blend in together. So having a culture where people feel confident in talking about what really happens, how they really feel, being able to say, well, actually, no, and let me tell you why, or let me explain to you why, I think as a business long term, where you might get the quick wins, you might get the quick fixes, but sustainability and longevity will not be there. Does that make sense, Oliver?
Absolutely, yeah. And what I just pick up on a particular point you made there before I forget it, because my short-term memory is atrocious. You talked about values and having values that are on a, just on a piece of paper for the sake of it. One of the things that I always struggle with, and I'll fight anybody who argues with me on this one, but I'm willing to have the fight, is I do not understand how the so-called C-suite or the senior or the directors and so forth are the people that are coming up with the values, because that means that they've sat in a room, probably with a highly paid professional or team of professionals, and come up with their values, and then they have shared them with the rest of the organization to tell them these are our values. Well, they're not going to be the values of the people in the room. They might share elements of it. They might understand what you're saying when they read those values, because normally values aren't crap. They make sense, but they're not the ones that these people live by. They don't own those values, and they've had absolutely little to no engagement in the process. Whereas I feel that there needs to be a full session or a full suite of sessions with everybody from all the different size areas of the business. I'm talking if you're a 5-man operation, 50-man, 500-man operation, there needs to be input from everybody. And then there needs to be an explanation, perhaps decided by the senior leadership, as to which values we've picked, but an explanation as to why, and maybe an explanation as to why other ones haven't been, so that everybody feels engaged and listened to. But honestly, I can never understand why business wastes what could be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds on a values exercise when they haven't taken into consideration the values of the people that work with them, stroke for them. It's insane. So that exercise of, well, they are. If you've done it at the top level, they are just words on paper, because they might be your values, but they're no one else's. And you will not have got the buy-in to the degree that you think you have by just putting it in a glossy document or on some cool posters on the wall. Now, I know that sounds a little bit snippy of me, but it fascinates me when I'm having discussions. It's why I do less work with businesses and more with one-on-one individuals, because the amount of conversations I've had with people where I've put a proposal in for X, and it's a very sensible proposal, and I know damn well it will work, but then umming and ahhing about it, but they've spent many thousands more on this branding and marketing and values exercise, which I know, because they've not done it properly, is borderline worthless, but it looks good on the coffee table in reception. So what do you think? Have I pushed it too far?
No, you haven't, and we're touching on the realms of culture, and when you start to touch on the realms of culture and how people communicate and how a business comes together, generally values are there, and you are right. In a lot of organisations, values are driven from the top down, and we know that in the businesses where they work well and they listen and they talk to their people, the values are built from the bottom up. So I think that's something to bear in mind. But we're talking about people being able to communicate and being able to explain that actually, no, this will not work because of X, Y, Z, or no, I won't be able to do that right now, but this is when I can do it. And it's just giving people that confidence based on the culture, because it is about the culture. If you have the right culture, then people can communicate in that way. If you haven't got the right culture, people won't say anything. And invariably, how many times has this happened within a leadership team where someone goes, well, why didn't you say anything? And the person looks dumbfounded and goes, well, because we don't have the right environment or culture for me to say anything, and I don't feel comfortable getting it wrong.
Yeah, 100%. And normally, I mean, you put it very, very politely there. It normally kicks off a little bit more than that, doesn't it? Because it's come to a head, and someone will say, so why didn't you say it? And they'll say, because you don't effing want to hear it, or something along those lines. I've been in rooms in previous family businesses. My dad won't mind me saying he's a bit of an arse when it comes to confrontation. He will listen, though, but he's a very borderline a bit rude sometimes. The amount of battles that we've had where he'll be literally doing that, banging his hands on the table and talking about it. And I have to say to him, look, Dad, but who would come and tell you that? The only reason it's come up now is because it's happened and like the proverbial S has hit the fan. But if you weren't like this, people would come to you with this stuff a lot earlier. This is the kind of back and forth that we would have. He's very old school. I'm attempting to be modern, and we don't do so much together now, to be honest, because it's just stressful, and he's getting old and he's not in great health. But the ding dongs that we would have. Because I get it, I get the old school way, but I don't buy into it. I don't accept it. Because you need everybody to be able to contribute. And some people are the reason that you are where you are, sitting in your decision making chair, and they are where they are at the moment, is because their confidence levels and their skills are at a certain level. Doesn't mean they couldn't mentally be where you are, but right now they're not. Therefore, they feel disarmed, so they need to feel comfortable with opening up. So, yes, that ability to be able to say no is a great checklist for the health of your business. If you feel people can say no and you can say no in your organization, then you're in a pretty good place. If you can't, and that people don't feel that way, you need to have a self-reflecting look at yourselves. Or if you're the individual in the place you can't say no, you need to have a think about whether it's the best place for you. Now, I'm conscious I've gone to 20 minutes and 40 seconds, and we really are trying to keep these around 20 minutes. So I'm going to zip it. Any final thoughts from you, Stephen, before we wrap this one up?
Just the final one, and that is that no can be used as a positive. So do not be afraid to use it, but also always make sure that the no has the right narrative around it to turn it into a positive.
Perfect way to finish. Thanks as always for listening. Another episode is on the way soon, and we hope you've enjoyed this. And as always, you want to have a chat. Speak soon.